Buonasera. Buonasera tutti. Good evening, everyone, because it is evening time. You would not say buonanotte because buonanotte means good night, like when you're going to sleep, you know, and you're leaving for the night or something. So it's buonasera, good evening, and benvenuti, Eileen's tasting room, which means welcome to my tasting room. Today, I'm really excited to introduce you to, can you do the next slide, please? I'm very excited to introduce you to the first ever Super Calabrian, and we will be exploring that. You're the first people to see that. So what I'd like you to all do now, because, excuse me, it happens. This is a really serious wine, so let's open it now and let it breathe for a few minutes. This is actually, this particular wine is a wine I buy for myself, from myself. That's how much I like it. So remember how to open. Under the lip, you go one way. Under the lip, you go in the other way. One slit down. Remove that piece of plastic on top. Can you see that? Close your knife. And you open your key, your wine key. I don't know, can you see me? I can't even see myself. And then remember, have the label face your guest, which would be me, I guess, I don't know. And open your wine. So twist the key. You start with the handle on the right side. You go to the bottom rung, handle on the right side. Flip up, maybe. Flip up again, and you hear the pop. Very important. Take a smell. It's not a heavy smell, which means it needs to breathe, but it's okay. So we're gonna let it breathe so the air gets at it. So what I would like to do is read a quote from the general manager of the Marrelli winery where Likinio comes from. And it is actually on the bottle in Italian. I'm going to read it in English. And he wrote, "When we offer a wine in the intimacy of our home or choose it in a restaurant, every time we fill a glass, we are inebriated with a taste, a perfume, a color, an emotion, a passion. But in reality, we do much more. We begin a journey into the culture, art, and history of a people to discover its roots, all the riches of the territory, and all those atmospheres that surround a wine. A journey that tells a story, the story of the life of a vine that has been cultivated in our Calabria in over 2,000 years. So I think that's pretty beautiful, I think. And so we have that on the label, and I got to tell you, in order to get this label approved, we kind of went through a lot with the federal government over just some words in there, but that's how strict they are. I think I want the next slide, please. But before we move on, Stephanie had a question. And she's not here, but hopefully she'll watch this, and I'm going to ask her a question. Her question was, she opened a bottle of a wine called Arneis, and it was fizzy. And I kind of knew the reason, but I felt I really needed to research the grape more. As you can see on this map of Italy, that grape, Arneis, A-R-N-E-I-S, comes from Piedmont, or in Italian you say Piemonte. And you can see where that is. It's very northern Italy. It's right there by the French Alps. It gets very cold in the winter. So what does it mean when you have a fuzzy wine that's not supposed to have bubbles? Now, Arneis is a grape that's grown and produced, as I said, in Piemonte. And it is both the name of the grape and the name from where it comes from. So it comes from Arneis, and it is called Arneis. It used to be called Arneio, and then it became Arneis, and I couldn't really find out why, but it's a white wine variety. And it actually, the Arneis means little rascal in Piemontese, which is the dialect of the people of Piemonte. It's regarded as a very difficult grape to grow, but it makes a very fragrant wine that has notes of pears and apples, stone fruit, some nutty stuff too. The wine is actually medium to full bodied and has a pale golden color. So if you love a bold fruit driven Chardonnay, then you'll like Arneis. It's mostly grown in an area called the Roero section of Cuneo, which is a province in central Piemonte. The soils there are sandy. The wine is made mostly in stainless steel vats. It was interesting for me to learn, going through the history and looking at some of the DNA, that traditionally this grape was planted to, and then going back a few hundred years ago, was originally planted to attract birds and bees away from red grapes that were being grown, rather than for the quality of its drinking. The appellation rules, come on, I'm talking to my computer here. Hold on. Come on, you guys. Sorry.
It's okay.
Kind of went away. And that's embarrassing. Here we go. Back. Disappeared again. I think what I'm doing is going too fast. Sorry. So it was not really planted as a drinking grape, but then it's become a drinking grape because it's very fruity, it's very fragrant, it's bold like a Chardonnay. The soils are sandy, it's made in mostly stainless steel vats. As I mentioned, the appellation DOCG rules, if you remember that, DOC, denominazione of, garantita. It means it's a guaranteed rules that, the rules are that Arneis itself may not be released, and it's probably harvested end of September, but it can't be released until, it cannot be released earlier than June the following year. Traditionally, it's paired with pastas and fish. It makes a nice transition wine from the lighter whites of summer to the heavier reds of winter. Now, so that's the grape and the wine. Now the issue, it's fizzy. It is not supposed to be fizzy, and that's what I wanted to research, because you can never tell. Somebody may have wanted to make it into a frizzante or a spumante. Frizzante are very light bubbles, spumante are heavier bottles. If it's fizzy, the way hers was, it's a flaw. It is definitely a flaw in the wine. Sadly, it's a wine flaw that more than likely comes from carbon dioxide that became trapped inside the bottle when the bottle was being enclosed or bottled. Basically, it was an unexpected second fermentation, and I'm sorry to say it's due to poor winemaking. It won't kill you to drink it, but the flavor is not going to be poor. May I have the next slide, please? Then we're going to talk about Sassicaia. If you haven't heard of Sassicaia, it was the original Super Tuscan, and I've heard you've heard of Super Tuscan. This is one of the more expensive wines out there that have no rules and regulations. So we are going to taste, though, the first ever Super Calabrian, but let's learn where we got that from. So here's a map of Tuscany, and you see the black star in there is an area called Maremma, and it's made there by a winemaker called, it's in a state called Tenuta San Guido Sassicaia. Tenuta means estate. The people who started this are actually cousins to the Antinori family. And it's a name that once you go in a wine store, you'll start seeing. Once you learn the history of Florence and the Medici family, you'll learn more about the Antinoris. They're hundreds of years old and they're still around. And their daughters, a lot of the daughters are running wineries. So the original Super Tuscan called Sassicaia, it originated in 1948. And it broke all the rules of the time. And the area where it's made, as you can see, runs parallel to the coast and the water. So the story began after World War I by a veteran named Mario Encisa, and he's the one who is related to the Antinori family. His wife had inherited a lot of land, and he wanted to make that land into a vineyard, but he wanted to create a very fine Bordeaux. But to him, there were too many rules. He did not want them to be hidebound by appellation rules and regulations, especially Bordeaux is so strict. I mean, so is Italy, but they're incredibly strict there. So the wine he made them actually was not the same as it is today. It has evolved. And after years of experimenting, the first commercial vintage came out in 1968. 10 years later, Decanter magazine, if you've never heard of it, it's out of London, and it is the most prestigious wine magazine in the world. They hold blind tastings. Now, in case you don't know what blind tasting is, they give you different glasses of wine. It's usually a master sommelier, of which there are only about 250 in the world, can do these kinds of blind tastings. They can smell the wine, taste the wine, look at the wine, and tell you what it is, where it came from, the soils, the land, the name, the year, the name of the producer. I mean, it's just amazing. I don't think I have enough years left in my life to get to that point. But in England back then, they called reds great clarets, C-L-A-R-E-T-S. So that's what they were called in the UK. And this blind tasting was for clarets. This particular vintage of this wine, this fabulous Sassicaia, won its first international award. In 1985, its fate was sealed with a bottle that had 85% Cabernet and 50% Cabernet Franc. And it received a stunning, almost unheard of, 100-point review from Robert Parker. I get chills when I think of that. Robert Parker, if you don't know who he is, many of you probably do, and I'm sorry if I'm kind of repeating myself, he is probably the foremost, he's an American, but the foremost wine critic in the world. What he says is almost like God said, you know? He said the wine reminded him of a 1986 Mouton Rothschild and better than all the wines he's ever tasted. So this became Tenuta San Guido's flagship wine. And you can go and buy the wine in a wine store today because the Antinori family is still going strong and there's a lot more of them than in the 1400s. But the term Super Tuscan was coined in the 80s to describe a red blend from Tuscany. I can't find anyone who can claim it, and no one can claim it. Why it was called super? Because it was super, like Superman or, you know, super whatever. It was super. Wow. So it's a term that's actually used to describe a blend of grapes. Now, Super Tuscan Sassicaia is made with what's called international grapes. And those would be Cabernet, Sauvignon, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, Merlot, Cab Franc, and other what's called quote unquote unsanctioned varieties. They're not made with an indigenous grapes at all. Although mine wines are, we're still calling it Super Calabrian because it is a blend. But that's what makes this different. It's high quality wines. So they're called international grapes, as I mentioned, because they're grown all around the world. Now today, these wines from Tenuta Sanguido can cost, I found the highest price at $2,387. I see it usually in the wine stores for about $276 was an average I saw. But I'm starting to see some winning bottles made by other vineyards at about $100. $100's the absolute bottom line I've ever found. It's an expensive wine. So today, Super Tuscans actually have a legal appellation, but it's not a DOC, it's not a DOCG, it's an IGT, which means in Indicazione Geografica Tipica, which means it's just typical of the geographic region. It gives the producers more, they want that because they have more flexibility. They don't want to be hidebound by rules. These wines are intense, they're very fruity. They have a lot of complex notes of like jams and spices and tobaccos and coffee. And in the mouth, the tannins taste sweet and they're very, very persistent. The grapes are vinified separately in temperature-controlled stainless steel and wooden tanks, and then aged in French oak together, barriques, which are the smaller barrels, for 18 months. It's got 14.5% alcohol. So it's pretty good. Now, there is, that area does have a single estate DOC appellation, and that's called Bolgheri Sassicaia. And that's just a place that's like, you know, teeny weeny, but it does have an appellation, Bolgheri Sassicaia. You see that in the store, and it's going to be Tenuta Sanguido. So now for the Super Calabrian. I think maybe the next slide, I'm not sure. Yeah, I read this already. Didn't I read this? No, I didn't read this. I'm sorry. Anyway, it's the Likinio is an intense and fruity wine, also made with a blend. One of my friends, who's a sommelier, said, wow, this is like a Super Calabrian. So I can't take credit for the name. Her name is Elena. She gets all the credit. But on the bottle, what you see is a story. The story is going to be in English and Italian. I'd like to read it because it's so special. Arise and lean forward. The Cape of Capo Bacinto, embracing the Ionian Sea. There lies the ancient Magna Grecia, laid bare a flourishing forest for sacred livestock to wander from sunrise to sunset. A lone surviving column built as a sanctuary in honor of the Greek goddess Hera's temple in the 5th century BC, served as a beacon for the surrounding fertile land and vineyards that gave origin to our Likinio. Can you, next slide, please? So when they talk about livestock, that is an Italian buffalo, and it's called bufala. And when you have bufala mozzarella or mozzarella de bufala, it comes from these guys. They are cows with horns. They're immense. On the vineyard, they have, I think, about 400 of these. So they make it right there on the vineyard. So Likinio, can we have the next slide, please? Likinio, there we go. Look, there's Calabria. Likinio comes from a DOC. You see it says Capo Rizzuto. It's actually Isola di Capo Rizzuto, and it's the only vineyard in the region. They're the only ones there, and they brought that region back to life. There's right on the ocean and hardly anything there, but it's so ancient. So many companies have understood that by enhancing the grapes from indigenous wines are certainly more difficult to produce and vinify than international wines. But high quality results can be achieved, and that's why this vineyard survives alone. It's hard to do, it's hard in that area, but they make exceptionally high quality wine. Can I have the next slide, please? There are a lot of other varieties that they have there. This is the Sea of Ionia. That is an area called Capo Colonna, which is walking distance from the vineyard. And that's the temple that's from 500 BC. It's called Temple of Juno Likinia, but it is in deference to Hermes, or whatever, Herdes, whatever her name is. So the farm with, can we have the next slide, please? The farm that has been producing these wines sits on 15 acres. There it is. Everything is conducted organically. It's composed of indigenous vines, all indigenous, such as Gaglioppo, Magliocco, Nerello, Mascalese, Nerello, Calabresa, Greco Bianco, Montonico Bianco, and they do some international vines too, such as Chardonnay. The territory of this area is located, as you saw, just a short distance from the sea. It's about 10 minutes, but it's also only a half hour from the Sila Mountains. So remember, center of Calabria is all mountainous, surrounded by beautiful beaches, and all the Italians come down there in the summer to sit on the beach all day long, and they don't get sunburned, and they don't get skin cancer, and I don't understand why. The vineyards are located about 190 meters above sea level. The temperature is what's called diurnal, meaning it cools down at night, but it's very hot during the day. So these changes at night guarantee that the grapes will keep their aromas and organoleptic qualities intact. So now you know diurnal. The soils consist of pebbles, calcareous, clay with fractions of dark vegetable soils, and other traces of clay. Next slide, please. Wow. So that is what the Magliocco grape looks like. Next one, please. And that's what the Gaglioppo grape looks like. They're both dark, but they have different skin consistencies. The thicker the skins, the thicker the tannins. I read somewhere the other day where someone wrote that Pinot Noir was the most tannic wine available. And I said, huh? That's impossible. It's a thin-skinned grape. So of course I did my research and I was correct. So the winemaker, whose name is Vincenzo Ippolito, made the choice of these two grapes because their characteristics are different, and they're different from each other. In the case of the Gaglioppo, we have grapes with few anthocyanins, which is what makes the color from the grape skins, and many polyphenols, which is actually the tannins. You don't need to go into a wine store and ask for polyphenols, just you want a tannic wine or low tannin. In Magliocco, it's exactly the opposite. There are a few tannins, but they have a lot of color with an aromatic that gives off notes of ripe red berry fruits, plums, and raspberries. This allows us to have a soft wine with a good color tone, a good aromatic complexity, and a great elegance. Next slide, please. I thought Julie and I thought we would stick this in here because it just shows what it looks like before the grapes as they're becoming grapes. It's kind of pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, next slide, please. So these are tanks. The vinification of these grapes begins with, they destem it, so they don't use the stems. They keep the grape juice, called the must, with the skins after it's crushed in a 5,000 liter vat in French oak. Then they ferment it with stainless steel containers at controlled temperatures. They then place it all together in a French oak barrel for 24 months. Immediately after, the two wines are joined together, mixed up, put in a steel container at controlled temperature again for another 5 months. See, it's a very complicated process of this wine. After which it's then bottled to make a further refinement of 2 months before it's being sold. So I would like you to taste it now. There was a barrel after that, wasn't there, Julia? Barrel picture? Next slide, please. Yeah. That's Franco. He's testing the wine in the barrels. He's the one that made that beautiful poem about when you drink wine, you know, you drink more than wine. You're drinking passion. You're drinking a story of people. You're drinking with friends. You're carrying on traditions. But let's taste. Now, remember, you have your glass. Can you see my glass? Okay. You only want to pour in, you know, maybe about 2 or 3 ounces because we're going to be swirling, especially with a darker, heavier wine, you want to swirl. So let's look at it. It looks nice and clear. There's no sediment. And what color would you say that is? No answer? Okay. I will say it's ruby, but slightly at the edge, you got a little bit of garnet. So it's a little bit complicated. Now, let's take a sniff. Remember what you smelled. Remember how to hold the wine glass. Now swirl.
I'm going to unmute you guys, okay? So if you want to pipe in here.
And then you swirl some more. We're going to swirl a lot because it's that kind of wine.
This has a spicy.
Yes, yes.
It's spicy.
I can't really hear that well, but
Yeah.
it's got a lot of spices in it. It's got, but you usually start with the first layer, and the first layer is fruit. So what kind of fruits do you smell?
Cherry? You smell cherry?
Berries? What kind of berries?
What do you smell?
Raspberry? Yes!
I don't smell raspberry. Raspberry? Wow, that's
Yes.
Oh, so no es pure.
How about sour cherry? Does anybody smell cherry?
I was going to say cherries.
Cherry.
I didn't smell.
Also,
I
maybe
smell cherries.
cranberry.
I smell cherries.
No, I don't.
But these are more like sour cherries. There's some currants.
Yeah, definitely currant.
And they are.
Huh?
This is past, too. Yes, probably. The past,
Yeah.
I can't hear that. But Tammy, maybe you can repeat.
I'm
Keep
just
swirling, folks.
Somebody has like a device on in the background. If you guys have something in the background.
Oh, it's the TV. I think we're.
Spicy na ba?
Okay, I muted everybody, Eileen, including you. Sorry, hold on one second.
Cherries. So far we have cherries. I smell sour cherries, though. They're not fresh cherries. Currants, definitely raspberries. That was a good call. Now let's go to flowers, because that would be next. What do you smell?
All right, guys, if you wouldn't mind putting it in the chat, it was worth a try. But if you could type in the chat what you smell in terms of flowers, that'd be appreciated.
Roses, always good, always good. Anybody smell geranium?
Anybody can spell geranium?
Peony? Roses is a good one. What kind of roses, though? Are they red roses, white roses, pink roses, fresh roses, wilted roses? See, now if you're in a class doing tasting, red roses, good. Now, when you're in a restaurant, you don't need to sit there and identify everything. You just take a good smell, and if it smells good to you, go on. But when me, I have to identify it all. All right, let's go to, now we've got some fruit, we've got flowers. So now let's go to the next level, and we're going to smell things like maybe some pepper. Can anyone smell pepper? And if they do, is it a white or a black pepper? Some licorice root.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Licorice root really stands out, right?
Yeah. Black pepper, clove.
A little green
I'm
pepper.
reading
A
the chat.
little.
I'm not the brilliant one. Black pepper,
No,
clove.
you're pretty good. Anybody smell like orange peel? Get your nose in there and swirl, and that orange peel is going to come out.
Cat pee. Just kidding.
No, it's not a cat pee.
Kidding.
That's usually a
So
Sauvignon
back to
Blanc.
session 1. Citrus zest.
Well, yeah, it would be zest of orange. Yeah, that's very good. It would be orange, but it would be orange. It wouldn't be lemon. So at first is what you get from the grape and the vine. The second layer is what you get from the winemaker. And then the third level is going to be what happens when it ferments. So the next level, after we smell, you know, the orange zest, which was a very, very good one to say zest, by the way. Tell me what you smell. Now we're getting to the nitty gritty. Keep swirling.
I smell Hera.
Smell who?
I'm kidding. The
Oh,
guy-
Hera. Yeah. Well, actually, that's very good because you're close. Because what I'm smelling is wet earth, and because it's so close to the sea, I smell a little bit of graphite minerality. So that's a complex wine.
Yeah.
When it has all these layers, and you know what, we could go on and on. I have sometimes sat with sommeliers doing tastings, and I wanted to scream after, you know, about 20 minutes. You know, like, how deep can you go? But you can. With a complex wine, there's so much you discover. And then you realize a lot of it is about the history and, of course, the geography and the soils and the air and the sea. And, of course, the winemaker is the one who's most important. This one has a 14% alcohol, which is, to me, as high as I like to go. I don't like to go higher than that because then it starts tasting like port to me. This is a perfect level. This is not a wine, although I will drink it watching television, but it's really more a wine with food. Now we did the nose. Now let's do the palate. Tell me what you're tasting. Do you feel that mwah, mwah, mwah in your mouth? Remember, when you do a taste, you got to roll it all over your mouth. Your gums, your teeth, your tongue, the front of the tongue, the back of the tongue, the middle of the tongue, the sides of the mouth, everything. And with a tannic wine like this, you should be feeling a real nom, nom, nom kind of taste. I don't know how to describe it, but, you know, it's puckering. Do people feel that? And it's persistent. It's got a sustained flavor. Do you feel, when you taste this, do you taste a dry wine?
Yeah.
This
Dry
has
wine.
got, excellent. Oh, blackberry jam, that's a good one. It is dry. It has only 0.8 grams per liter of sugar. That's almost nothing. So this is really dry, even though it's got high alcohol. If you're on a diet, this is a good one. So we looked at it being dry. Now let's look at the tannins. How do the tannins feel to you? Are they soft? Are they hard?
Yeah, they're kind of hard.
You find them to be hard? Look, yeah, it's tannic. Well, the answer would be tannic. It's not overly tannic. It's not astringent. It is a tannic wine. There are more tannic wines like Barolo, you know, from Piemonte, but this is up there with that. And with a tannic wine like this, you want to pair it with veal that has mushrooms, or a really, really good one with this is lasagna. Lasagna baked in the oven, and any good pasta with a good pomodoro sauce that's got a lot of spices in it, because that's what they have down there. What's interesting, when I first went to live down there and I went to the market, you know, you go to the market, at least in LA, and you have a section of pasta. You go there and you have rows and rows and rows of pastas. Pastas you've never heard of, shapes you've never seen before, but they have it all. You know, spaghetti's like the least of it. So this is a great with pasta wine. Although, like I said, I drink this without anything either, but I do prefer it with food and something that would be like that. So let's also talk about the balance. In your mouth, do you feel an intensity?
Yeah.
Okay, it is intense. It is what I would call intense. Is it persistent? So in other words, do you feel it a long time in your mouth? Is it short? Is it long? How long does it stay?
It's kind of short.
It's short to you, okay. See, to me, this is moderately persistent. The structure of this wine is bold. It's not light, you know, it's not medium bodied. This is a bold wine. This is robust. It is typical of Calabria. It's a typical of the region with those two grapes that are grown only there and nowhere else in the world. And the state of evolution for this is it's drink now. You can drink this ready, but you can have it laying around for a year or two. This has ageability to it. Then the most important thing you ask yourself afterwards is this a harmonious wine? Do I like it? You know, do all the things I taste? Also, we didn't talk about sapidity. Do you feel sapidity in your mouth? Do you feel any salt? Any like saline? It's got sapidity to it, but I want to know if you guys taste that.
Yeah, I think a couple of the members commented in the chat that they did taste salt, especially when you talked about it being by the sea.
Yes, yes. It has sapidity to it. It's a moderate sapidity because you would have, you know, maybe white wines that would be a heavier sapidity, but this is pretty good. It's got a sapidity to it, and that's why you want it to go well with, you know, like a lasagna, that kind of food, or a veal with mushrooms, you know, and a veal sauce. So to me, this is a balanced wine. I like it. I'd like to hear what you people think about it.
I'd love to unmute you guys, and if you wouldn't mind, there was just somebody on the call who had something on in the background. If that's you, just mute yourself after I unmute, so that way we can kind of share on this. I think that'd be a great idea. So give me a second. I'm going to unmute everyone.
She's still asking. So
She's unmuted us.
I can't hear that. What's the question? Oh, you like this wine? That's from Denisa. Thank you. Anyone?
Oh, like this wine. I thought
Yeah.
she said swine.
Oh, yeah.
Like it?
Take a look.
So bold, this California wine. I like it. I like the one last week better.
Mhm.
Oh, you did? Okay, that was a milder wine. Some people
Yeah.
do because this is bold. This is
Yeah.
heavy and bold. And it's
Mm-hmm.
got that mix of the Magliocco grape in there with the Gaglioppo. The one last week was only Gaglioppo. And that wine, you didn't like it that much, but I got to tell you, that wine is such a big seller for us.
Yeah, I like that
Table
one.
wine.
To tell her.
I did sure.
That one was kind of table wine, but this is more.
Yes, you would, but don't you dare say that in Italy. If you said this is the vino de tavola, a table wine, they'd go, never call it that. So that is more of the one last week was more of an everyday kind of wine.
Yeah.
Come home from work, you want a glass of wine, you have that one. This one you reserve for a nice dinner.
I liked it.
Yeah.
The other one was more for a COVID-19 scenario. This one.
You need to buy in bulk.
I gotta tell you, what's really interesting is my wine stores are so busy, it's unbelievable. But what are people buying? Whiskey.
Whiskey.
Wow.
Yeah, it's getting big.
Yeah.
Whiskey's the big seller.
Yeah.
I'm coming back big time.
Yeah, I've never been a whiskey person.
Me either.
I'm not a whiskey person at all. When I was a kid growing up, my mother, because my grandmother did it, would put whiskey in tea if we were sick. So to this day, whiskey to me means I'm sick. So
Yeah, my mom did that too. The whiskey with honey.
If you drink too much, you will be sick. Don't worry, Eileen.
Yeah, right. All the bacteria.
No, I just kind of
Anesthetized.
something to me. But it's just funny that whiskey's been going flying at the door. Even at Total Wine, which is I don't know if you have that where you are. It's national chain, but they're huge. And I went in there. I know they had sommelier there, and I wanted to find out what's selling whiskey. So there you go. So may I have the next slide, please?
Oh yeah, sure. Let me pull that up again. Give me one sec.
So this is a brilliant wine. It's a brilliant combination. We didn't have that up before. That's my mistake. But talking about what are the different
Ready to go back or forward?
Move forward. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. I'm sorry, because I'm not used to using that. There's lasagna. There's mozzarella de bufala. When you go to the farm, last time I was there, I was hanging out by the buffalo because they were so beautiful to me. And there's a kitchen there, and one of the chefs came out with his chef outfit on, and he gave me in my hand a warm piece of mozzarella di bufala. And I ate it right there, and it was to die. So if you ever go there, I can introduce you, and you can actually probably go in the kitchen and make the mozzarella di bufala yourself for fun. But the taste, being it warm and it just made, I was like in heaven. I didn't want to go home. But, that's what it's like down there. They're all so into food. It's such a passion with Southern Italians. Kind of like living in New Orleans, there's a passion with the food there. So remember I said that, Milan is like New York, and Southern Italy, Calabria is more like Louisiana. Different cities, different people, different foods, different culture. So next slide, please. So I want to talk about the heroes that make this, the heroes of this wine. The man when you're facing this on your right, that's Vincenzo Ippolito. Now, Ippolito is a big, important wine name in Calabria. And he and his father didn't get along. So he broke off from the Ippolito winery. He went to school, University of Bologna, I believe, and got his degrees in winemaking. Came back, went to work for Marrelli, and that's Mr. Marrelli with the microphone. And came up with this wine, which I think is, to me, it's brilliant. And because it's so complicated, the way it's being made, and every taste is pretty much because of him, because of the winemaker. The thickness, the acidity, the tannins, I mean, that's all that he does. This grape juice, the must sits with those skins and seeds, no stems, he takes them away. So a month probably, and that's why. Oh, now I'm unmuted. Thank you. So they make the taste, and I think he's one of the most brilliant winemakers I've ever met. The man next to him in the middle is Franco. Franco is actually a friend of mine. His wife and I are good friends. Her name is Flavia. I know him from living in Calabria. He's been in the wine business many, many years, and he manages everything because they also have a fabulous restaurant in the winery that they just started maybe a year ago because they make their own mozzarella di bufala. Everything is fresh and organic. It's fantastic. And then you have Signore Marrelli, who's, you know, gave both Franco and Vincenzo, both of these men, full reign. Go ahead and make me fabulous wine. And they did. May I have the next slide, please?
Aww.
This is all of us. I thought I'd show this because every year there's the largest wine festival in the world in Verona, Italy. It's called Vinitaly. It's about a 6 mile a day walk to go around. There's about 20 buildings. Each building represents a region. The gentleman, you see Vincenzo, you see Franco, the other gentleman in the center, his name is Adolfo. He's big in the Calabrese government, and his big thing is getting the foods and the wines out internationally to the world. He's a wonderful, wonderful man and speaks perfect English, which is unusual because the other two speak zero English. So he's always very helpful. So this is at Vinitaly. We were supposed to go in April, and then coronavirus hit and everything was closed down. So unfortunately, we have to wait till next year. But Vinitaly is the largest one in the world. It's open the first day to the public. So if anybody wants to go and taste wines from all over Italy, every region. I even had some grappa, and I had one sip, and I thought I was going to be drunk. It was so strong. But the first day it's open to the public, and you can go and just wander the buildings and taste all kinds of wines. And Verona is the city of love. That's where Romeo and Juliet come from. And you can even go visit Juliet's house. It's a lovely little city. Next slide, please. My favorite face is the bufala. And the front face of this guy, you know, it's not clear, and I'm sorry because it's with my phone. I fell in love with that cow. That cow is so beautiful to me. Anyway, so just think about, where does this stuff come from? Well, it does come from cows, but these are different cows called bufala, which is very different from the kind of buffalo that we have here in America that were killed during, you know, when people were going west. I forgot the name of those buffalo, the long hair, but these are the same thing, but down there. So next, please. That is Tropea, but we also have something else.
Okay, hold on one second. I am going to turn that on for us. And let me... give me a sec. Nope. Do you guys see a beautiful crystal?
There it goes, there it goes.
Okay, great.
Can you get it to play? It's actually a video of people swimming.
Do that. Give me one sec because there's one other little piece that I want to plug in. So give me a sec. All right, we got this.
Don't you want to jump in that water? I mentioned last week, Julia and I both read in different articles that that was the #1 most beautiful hidden beach in the world. But it won't be hidden for long, I'm sure. But Italians from all over Italy come down through, that's on the Tyrrhenian Sea, come down to Calabria for the beaches, and this one is one of the most popular. That area is also famous for red onions, which are fantastic. Really delicious. But do you agree that that's beautiful? And you want to jump in that water? May I have the next slide, please? So I talk about jewelry, Magna Grecia jewelry. You've seen, I'm wearing this one today. So I figured you can't see it, so I'll take a picture of it. The stone is actually green, and the stone itself turns around to the other side to be roses. That is a picture of, everything is Magna Grecia, Great Greece. That is a picture of, we know as Venus, but in Italian it's Venere. The one Julia showed you that she had was Dimitri. So this is Venere, in Latin, Venus, that's where that comes from. And this is made by Gerardo Sacco, one of the fabulous artistic jewelers from that area. You can't even buy this stuff online. You have to buy it down there. Unfortunately, I've tried. So that is the introduction of the first Super Calabrian. And I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank you all so much for bearing with us. And I really enjoyed doing this because I love talking about wine almost more than anything, because I developed this passion later in life that I didn't know I had until I went to live there, and I saw how differently the Southern Italians especially treat wine than Americans do. Again, to them, it's a food. It's not an alcohol. You have food on the table, you have wine. You have wine on the table, you have food, period. So I want to thank you, and any questions at all? I want to go to that beach right this moment.
I'm going to unmute for a second, because if you loved what Eileen did, then I want you guys to be able to show your appreciation. I unmuted everybody, so let's give her a round of applause. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, great.
Oh, fantastical.
Thank you.
Thank you.